That's why stories are so powerful. And again, another quote here from another author, another novelist, Patrick Rothfuss. He says this: "It's like everyone tells a story about themselves inside their own head, always, all the time. That story makes you what you are. We build ourselves out of that story." Wow, wow, that's just an amazing insight. So story really drives us. All of us are a story in the making. All of us have a past, present, future that we're living out, and it's governed by our self-image, and our self-image is the story that we're telling ourselves. So I said earlier that when we listen to someone else's story, it gives our imagination an opportunity to try out an alternate reality. Well, this is when you combine that insight with this insight that everybody's telling themselves a story and they build their lives out of that story. What it means is when we tell somebody a story, we're interrupting the story that they're telling themselves. And we're giving them an alternate ending, a different evolution in their story that they can try out for size. And if they like it better, they can rewrite the story that they're telling themselves and live a different story. So storytelling is an opportunity for us to interrupt the story that people are telling themselves and give them the option of writing a different story. And that's why it's so powerful for us to be capable. So important for us to be capable of telling a story. So in telling your story, basically every story has three parts: a beginning, a middle, and an end. That's it. It's as simple as that. Every story has three parts: a beginning, a middle, and an end. In the beginning is where we set up the story. In the middle, there has to be a moment of conflict. We don't really have a story if there's no conflict. And then there must be a resolution. It's like every joke has to have a punchline. If somebody's telling you a joke and there's no punchline, you're like, well, what was the joke? And in the same way, if we're telling a story and there's no conflict, it's like, well, what was the story? And the conflict doesn't have to be major. I'll give you an example. A client of mine. This is a business owner, and he built a successful consulting company. He was running it for about 18 years, and really loyal employees, good customers, really good guy. I really enjoyed meeting him and just saw how genuine of a person he was and how much he cared for his people, and built, as I said, quite a successful small consulting company. He went to school with a guy that was now working at HP and ran into a really difficult problem with supply chain management, and looked at all of the supply chain vendors, and it had to do with managing the supply chain in real time, so that if there was a natural disaster, let's say in the Philippines, and a warehouse was no longer accessible, that in real time they would understand what is the impact of that warehouse inaccessibility on our supply chain and our ability to deliver on our promises to our retailers. And not only that, what can we do to change things, change the source of supply in real time if we're not able to meet our promises? And none of the vendors on the market, including the big players like SAP, Oracle, etc., none of them had a solution to this problem. And his job was on the line as a result of this. He went to school with my client, Michael, and remember, just smart guy, and he really felt, I knew he was in consulting, and really felt Michael could help him. So he reached out to Michael, explained the problem with him to him. Michael did his research, and they then entered into a consulting agreement. And Michael and his team built this really cool supply chain management application, a real-time supply chain management application for their client. Turns out that what they built was so powerful, they realized they should shift from being a consulting company to being an application company, that they could be a product company, and that would allow them to scale and build the company much faster. So they all agreed, they made the transition. And one of the first organizations they went to was SAP, basically saying, we do something that you guys don't do. SAP loved the solution, was thinking of buying them as a company, but wanted them to grow a bit more, and certainly would consider buying them. But what they did was they made them their highest level partner. And I forget, I think maybe it's called platinum partner. Immediately, and it's very, very difficult to become a partner with SAP, period. They made them the top partner that was possible. And they did that immediately. And educated their sales force on the solution. The sales force went out and started educating their clients on the solution. And Michael and his team suddenly found that they had a sales funnel that was just brimming with opportunities, multi-million-dollar opportunities. They went out and started to hire people and build out this new company, from moving from a consulting company to a product company, and realizing how quickly they could scale selling these applications rather than consulting projects. And then something devastating happened to them. For Michael and his team, you know, a couple of $1 million contract or agreement sale was a great sale, and they had all these multiple opportunities in their funnel, all multi-million-dollar opportunities. To the SAP sales rep, a couple of $1 million opportunity is like petty cash, is chump change. And yet it was a solution that was differentiating their opportunity, their sales opportunities, which were hundreds of millions of dollars. And so what did they do? They simply said to the client, if you buy our solution worth hundreds of millions of dollars, we'll throw in this supply chain management solution, and you can have it for free. So Michael and his team suddenly found that this funnel that they had, which was full of multi-million-dollar opportunities, was just vanishing to nothing. And all the time that they spent training the SAP reps, and all of the money that they spent recruiting new employees and setting up infrastructure, everything was now in jeopardy. And it actually looked like they might lose the company. One of the people they hired, named Paul, was recently with another company that I had trained. And so when they realized that they have to take matters into their own hands and learn how to sell for themselves instead of relying on SAP, they needed sales training. And Paul just told them, you've got to have Adrian come in. You've got to have Adrian come in and train us. And so they were looking at a couple of other vendors, but they ended up speaking with me. We talked what the requirements were. We then set up a 3-day intensive program where we took their people, most of them were engineers, and really taught them how to sell to CEOs, how to sell to CIOs, how to sell to C-level executives, or the conversation that they have to have, and how to be effective at that level. And then we went on coaching them for the next year. And they then were able to take matters into their own hands. They were able to pursue very significant opportunities. In fact, they closed a big opportunity with an organization in the UK worth, I think it was worth $12 million. A very big deal. And at the same time, what they really wanted to do was sell the company so that the founders would be able to retire, etc. And that's what they were in fact able to do, because they were able to have this proof that they could sell multi-million-dollar solutions. And not only that, they had a high-quality funnel that SAP wanted to buy them, but they ended up selling to another company. And that company paying a premium because they were competing with SAP to buy them. And nobody was, none of the core employees that Michael wanted to look after, none of them lost their jobs. And so that's an example of a story with a beginning, middle, and end. And the conflict is that with SAP, the resolution being that they were able to move into this product company successfully, and then they were also able to sell the company. Everybody was able to keep their jobs, and it went well. So that's beginning, middle, and end. But it's also really this transition from current state to future state. So storytelling and change are basically the same thing. We're going from beginning, middle, and end, but change is, current state, transition state, future state. The transition state in our storytelling is where there is conflict. And more specifically, the model that I want to share with you, this is the framework, is called the hero's journey. So you start off with this, it's a 5-step process, and the first step is to introduce the hero. You introduce the hero, and you make him likable, and the listener has to relate to him or her. So the hero must be similar to the listener in what we call role and goal. They must be similar in role for relevance. So I would tell that the story that I just shared, for example, I would share with another business owner. So you're a business owner. Hey, here's another client that I had that's also a business owner. They also have to be similar in goal. So role creates relevance, but goal creates emotional engagement. What you need to realize is that our emotions are tied to our goals. We are triggered to have positive emotions when things move us closer to our goals, and we're triggered to have negative emotions when things get in the way of us achieving our goals. And that's something that's wired into us right from birth. So if I was talking to a business owner that, let's say, had a lack of confidence in their sales funnel, then they had a lack of confidence in their people's ability to engage in business conversations, then I would share this story. A great way to introduce the hero after you've kind of set the stage with the hero is to say, like you, he's a business owner, or like you, he was also trying to improve the quality of his sales funnel. And that's what sort of triggers the subconscious mind to pay attention, to say, okay, I need to take the story on because this person's like me, and whatever they are going to face, I could face in the future. So I need to check this out. Stage two is to introduce to introduce the villain. So the villain now enters the hero's life. And as a result of the villain entering the hero's life, things go south for the hero. It's important that your hero is a person. And too many business people or salespeople will tell stories about companies. The reality is, we don't care about companies. We care about people. So make sure that your hero is a person and you're telling the story about a person. The villain does not have to be a person. It can be a person, place, or thing. So the environment could change, or a company comes in and acquires you, or the interest rates go up, or gas prices go up. So a villain can be a person, place, or thing. As a result of the villain's presence, things go poorly for the hero. It's in the pit that the hero acquires a new resource. And this is where you come in. Most people, when they tell stories, they want to be the hero. No, you're not the hero. The customer is the hero. If you cast yourself as the hero, people will be skeptical about your prowess and your story. They'll begin to criticize and critique your story. If you cast the customer as the hero, then they'll just listen because they see themselves in the same role. You're the resource that the hero acquires. And as a result of acquiring this new resource, they gain new strength. So in my case with Michael, they're in the pit. It looks like the company's going to go bankrupt. They're going to have to, people have been loyal to the company for 18 years. They're going to have to let these people go. It's like a complete failure for Michael. And as a result of somebody being on a training course with me in Canada, then when he was hired in the US, he's telling this CEO, you've got to hire Adrian. And he's just insisting on it. And that's how I come into their life. I'm not the hero. I'm just a resource. And so I come in, I train their people, I coach their people, and they're able now to rebuild their funnel and rebuild their business. And then stage 4 is triumph. They're now triumphant and then transformation. So they're able to make the transition successfully into a software company, and so successful in fact that they're able to go on and sell the business, and then the owners are able to go into retirement as a result. So very, very simple process, but it does take a little bit of practice, and the keys to this are remembering the hero is you are not the hero. A company is not the hero. A hero is a human being. It's a person, it's one of your customers, and that person is similar to me in both role and goal. And the other thing I should mention is something is at stake. So, in the case of Michael, he's building this business, he's got loyal employees, they're really beginning to see the opportunity to become an application company, and now their whole livelihood is at stake. If you watch movies, in fact, I was watching a movie the other day, flying on a plane, I just needed a bit of mental rest. And, it's interesting to see how they'll set up the hero so that you like them at the beginning. They're a person just like you. they've got a family, and now suddenly that family is at risk. They're at risk of losing their whole family. And you feel emotional because you see yourself in the same role. That's why you can be watching a movie and at a very suspenseful moment, your heart is racing. Well, why is your heart racing? It's because you've put yourself in the story. And as you're telling your story to someone who's in a similar role and a similar goal with something at stake, the listener is putting themselves in the shoes of the hero. And they're experiencing the same emotions that your hero is experiencing. All of that to say, when the hero triumphs and is successful, they are vicariously experiencing that success. And what they've done is they've vicariously purchased your product or service and gotten to see and experience what it's like to do business with you. I love this formula. Action is a function of belief. And what stories do is they change beliefs. You cannot change someone's action if their belief doesn't change. And by taking your story out for a ride and experiencing what it would be like to be this hero. You know, I've got employees. I don't want to be unsuccessful. I don't want to have to let them go after they've been so loyal to me. And then I get to hear the story about Michael. I get to try that out for a ride. I'm like, oh wow, if we could really train our sales force to be very proficient in winning new business, that could change everything. So they get to change their belief system and say, yes, our emphasis needs to be on improving our sales skills. We're going to take different action. And so that's the key here, is to understand that actions are a function of belief. Very quickly now, so that's on storytelling. I just want to wrap up quickly with a little bit on metaphors. When people talk to you, you want to be sensitive to the metaphors they use, because behind every metaphor is a narrative. So when I was talking to somebody the other day and they said, you know, Adrian, I feel like we're stuck in the mud. You know, or it wasn't, they just said, you know, we're stuck in the mud and we're spinning our wheels and we can't get out. That's a metaphor. And there's a narrative behind the metaphor. I don't need to understand, I want to understand some of that narrative, but I can't understand all of it. You know, this was a company that had been around for about 20 years, and so there's 20 years of narrative behind that metaphor. And that's what I'm saying here. It packages history, but it provides a shorthand of that history. And there's a shared understanding that everybody has when the CEO says to them that they're stuck in the mud. When I listen to that and engage in that metaphor, I am engaging them at a subconscious level, because the whole history of what they've been through for 20 years is stored in their subconscious, but it's packaged in this metaphor that they're stuck in the mud. So when I'm talking to them in future, what I'm doing is I'm working with that metaphor, and I'm extending it. So I'm going to talk to them about, you know, hitching to a powerful engine that can pull them out of the mud. I don't understand the power of what I've just said, because the power of what I've just said is in the metaphor that packages 20 years of history. But by talking to them and extending them and talking to them through the view lens of this metaphor, it creates a very deep emotional engagement to what is being said. So very quickly, I just wanted to mention this, that be sensitive to metaphors. And another thing to listen for is the verbs that people use. Verbs are often packages for metaphors. So people will talk about, you know, we need to drive change. Well, are you really driving change, or is that a metaphor? Or they'll say something like, we need to spring into action. Are you really springing into action, or is that a metaphor? So listen for the verbs that people use, because often they are disguises for metaphors, and they provide movement. We'll stop here for now, and look forward to seeing you on the next lesson. For now, take a moment and think about what you learned from this lesson, and how you can actually apply this in terms of that very simple framework for storytelling, and also listening for metaphors as people are talking to you about their challenges, and perhaps using those metaphors in your storytelling. So that's great, and again, the key is always take action.